Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and I'm here with a number of our colleagues in government, including members of the Westchester County Board of Legislators, members of the senior management team here in the executive branch, and the leadership of our Department of Public Safety to identify an action that we're taking in the legislature and in the executive branch that we think during the end of National Police Week, will be a helpful piece of legislation as suggested by law enforcement officials to help them do their job a little bit better. We often talk about standing, behind the brave men and women of law enforcement, and sometimes, it's a showy type of situation, but sometimes it involves very specific and technical details that will improve their ability to enforce the laws, and that's what this legislation represents. We have laws right now that currently exist to regulate precious metal and gem dealers, and they're in need of an update in order to keep up with advancements in technology and changes in law enforcement trends. The law enforcement community has identified an increase in crimes relating to stolen goods that coincides with the onset of the opioid and the heroin epidemic. Since secondhand dealers are often used to dispose of stolen goods, controls and regulations on that industry would assist in preventing the proliferation of stolen goods being sold for quick cash, which is then used to purchase drugs. The proposed law makes a number of technical changes to account for new types of precious metals and gems. In addition, the law would require dealers to be duly licensed to conduct business within Westchester County. The proposed local law would require dealers to not only maintain written records of their transactions, but also to submit daily electronic records of each transaction that they make. This is a bipartisan effort in the legislature led by legislators Margaret Kunzio and Kitley Koval. It's in collaboration with the leadership of our Department of Public Safety. Our Commissioner Tom Gleason is here, and Chief John Hodges, and our county's Consumer Protection Department, headed by Jim Maisano, who, as a former legislator, has a very sharp eye for areas of legislation that can help us advance our executive implementation situation. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask Commissioner Gleason, followed by Chief Hodges, to talk to us from the public safety standpoint of what it is that this proposal would do. Then we'll follow with our Consumer Protection Director, Jim Maisano, who will talk about the element of those entities that are being regulated and implementation of it. And then we'll have our legislators, both Legislator Kunzio and Legislator Koval, talk about the legislative process, and then we'll open it up to any questions that you have. So next, Commissioner Gleason and Chief Hodges.
Thank you, sir. As the county executive mentioned, my name is Thomas Gleason. I'm a commissioner of public safety, and I wanted to thank the county executive in particular and his staff, the county attorney, and the board of legislators, Colville and Kunzio that are here today, and of course Jim Maisano from the county Department of Consumer Protection for being such staunch supporters of law enforcement and being sympathetic when we brought our concerns regarding this needed revision to the legislation to their attention. It's critically important, especially in this day and age, to try to combat the sales of stolen property, and the way that the law was on the books, which required paper submissions, was so far behind the times, and this changing to an electronic submission in and of itself is going to be a huge tool for us in crime fighting. Right now it's a challenge because the dealers are only required to maintain the property for 14 days before they can liquidate it. And often by the time they complete the paper reports, get them to us, we collate them, enter them into an electronic system, and then send them out to a local law enforcement to compare against the crimes in their jurisdictions. Many times the stolen goods were already disposed of. So this is a huge help to us. There's several other benefits as well. And I'll ask Chief Hodges, that's with me here today, to talk a little bit more in detail about that.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, as the Commissioner said, this is a very important piece of legislation. So, it was originally introduced back in 1980, and the last changes to it were made in 1985. And since that time, there's been a lot of changes in society, especially, with technology. As he had said, these are secondhand dealers, and it's well known that items that could have been stolen, robbery or a burglary or a larceny, will work their way into the second-hand dealers who are buying and selling and trading, especially with the precious metals. gems, and coins. Now, everyone has seen challenge coins and things of that nature. So in the past, it's been a paper submission that would come by mail to us and then to our people in our crime analysis unit. That could take 5 days or more. So this is huge for us to get these submissions in a timely manner. We also looked at some of the penalties involved with this to put some bite into the law. But certainly for us, this is going to be huge to identify, and hopefully anyone who has had something of value that they have been the victim of a crime, to help them to recover that. So this is great. It was really good working with our partners in consumer protection, and this is going to be huge for us in public safety.
Before I ask Director Jim Masano to come up to the microphone, I do want to recognize we're joined by our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, and our County Attorney, John Nona, who is with us here, and then our Deputy Director of Operations, Emily Saltzman, is with us, and our Director of Communications, Catherine Chaffee, as well as other members of the executive branch, is with us. Jim.
Hello.
Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. So the Consumer Protection Office really enjoyed working with public safety on this, because I think we always wanted to be police officers. It was our first time we got to feel like we were police officers. We had a lot of fun working on this law, but we really were impressed with their knowledge and their understanding of how this crime happens out there in the streets. They taught us a lot, and we are the ones who license these companies. So we do the inspections, we do the licensing process, so we have our own expertise. But the one thing we all knew working together was that there were a lot of words missing from this law, like database, like internet, like technology, right? It goes back to the 1980s. So it was pretty clear to me. One thing I've tried to do in my new position over the last year and a half is update the laws in our department, because many laws in Westchester County are dated back 50 years ago, something John Nona worked on as a county legislator, updating the laws of Westchester County. So this is clearly one of those, where we needed to update the laws of Westchester to better catch thieves. And the only way we can catch the thieves on the secondhand jewelry crimes is to update technology to get the data transferred very quickly, so we can identify those items and get them back for the person that lost them before they're sold and lost forever. So that's why these updates are so important. We're looking forward to working with public safety in enforcing this law, and there's no question in our mind that these changes, if we pass these changes on the Board of Legislators, and of course the county executive will sign it, it really will make a difference in law enforcement and will really help us crack down on this particular crime of people that quickly steal something and then try to flip it really quickly, and then it'll be lost forever to the poor person that had stolen. So we still do other things. We still inspect the scales at these places, and we check the posting of prices, as well as doing the licensing. So we're very involved in regulating these businesses. There's 425 active licenses right now in Westchester County on the books. So I enjoyed working with everybody, and we have more work to do after we pass this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Now, the legislation is before the Board of Legislators, and the two co-sponsors that are going to shepherd it through the legislative process are part of the process by which this law comes to pass. And we're very happy that on a bipartisan basis, Legislator Margaret Kunzio, who's conservative Republican out of Mount Pleasant, and Kitley Koval, who's a Democrat out of Katona in the town of Bedford, are jointly advancing this bill. And they'll talk a little bit about their advocacy for the bill and then also a bit of the legislative process that's ahead of us. So, legislators?
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Margaret Kunzio. I'm the chairwoman of Public Safety, so I work very closely with the Public Safety Department. Anyone that has ever had or known somebody that has had something stolen from you, especially something with sentimental value, knows that time is of the essence. So this legislation will enable law enforcement to do their job, to do it efficiently, effectively, and hopefully this will have a positive impact on our constituency. So if somebody does have something stolen from them, we can get that information out there and hopefully get it back to the rightful owner. My cousin had her wedding band and engagement ring stolen after she gave birth to her third child. She wasn't fitting into it. Somebody came in, broke into her home, and took it. And it's not so much the value of those rings, but the sentimental value. She'll never have those back again. Watching what she went through and watching how the process was so slow is something that I think really hits home. And I'm hoping that we will get public safety and the director of consumer relations into our committees ASAP. We'll be able to vote it out of committee and then vote it out on the floor. So I am in complete support of this, and I appreciate everyone working together. It was great. I spoke to the individual departments, made sure that everything was to the T, and everybody had said, working with the law department, they came up with the best piece of legislation they could. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kitley Koval, and I am her cousin. Not really, but I had stuff stolen from me that was of immense value to me. My grandmother had given a diamond that she had to each of her 3 grandchildren, and mine was taken. I have never forgotten it, but I will tell you this. The interesting thing is, as an ex-ADA, someone would come in like me and make a complaint, having gone to the detective bureau or whatever, and I'd hold my head in my hands because it is so antiquated, so much of this. And I'm hoping that Westchester will show them the way, and I will tell you my story briefly. Came in, took everything, including this precious diamond that was actually a special kind of cut. So had there been an electronic, it would have come through right away as a miner's cut, which is an unusual kind of cut. And had we had that electronic book come in, say, just got a miner's cut diamond, it would have made that difference. We would have been able to get it. As it happens, they finally did catch the guys a couple of weeks later, and they had tickets, pawn shop tickets in their pocket. And when they went to the pawn shop, they said, oh, yes, we did have this, but no one had claimed it, and it was sold. And who knows what it was sold for. So, this is real-life stuff that will make an ADA say, I know, let's call them and check the record. And it'll help law enforcement say, this is good. We know, let's get a good description. It's not just a gold cross, but it has Tiffany on the back, and it says your initials. We're going to find that for you. So it's really a wonderful way to make sure that we, again, reinforce that this is a safe and good community. And hopefully the state will notice, and every county will enact this. So the pawn shop in Brooklyn, which took something out of Katona, will also be part of this eventually. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're very happy to work cooperatively, as you can see, between departments, between the executive and the legislative branch, and to try to have this come to pass. I gather it'll be in your committee, Margaret, and at some point in time you'll vote it out to the general floor. Are there any other committees that it has to go through? And yours is legislation. Okay, so both committees will act. It'll go to the floor. Public hearing attached to it?
Yes.
So there'll be a public hearing and then ultimately passed by the Board of Legislators. I intend to sign it when it comes to the desk. If there's any changes that come out of the legislative process, that's in the province of the legislators to discuss and amend the law if they see fit. And on the assumption that whatever the final product is, I would intend to sign it into law as soon as it would pass. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions, and probably depending on the nature of your question, you may want to direct it either to one of our police professionals, our consumer protection professional, or our legislators, as they're the 3 key elements of it. So any questions? You can also interview people outside one-on-one if you'd like. Mark?
So what's it going to entail, the new software and stuff? And is there a cost that's going to be associated with that?
Jim, are you in a position to be able to address that?
Rogers might be good for that.
What's the software and the changes that will happen internally?
We're still looking at some software programs to see who we want to use. The cost is really minimal to the user, the vendor. A lot of them now are using electronic apps on their laptops or their PCs there. All this will do is allow them a mechanism for them to put the transaction and submit it through the vendor that we choose for the software, so that we get it and we can get it right. Instead of taking it in writing in the mail, taking it and then putting it into a spreadsheet, it'll come right to us in a spreadsheet, allow us then to collaborate with local police departments with that list if they have put anything out. Our intelligence unit people do this on a regular basis, with bulletin systems and like that, with all of our colleagues from all the different police departments. And this way we can share it with them much faster. Like I say, a lot of the vendors now are actually, like the electronic version because it's so much easier.
Okay. Other questions? Any other questions? Mark, go ahead.
What about the licensing? You mentioned that. What's that going to cost, and how's that going to be different for the vendors?
It's not going to be different. It's pretty much we rolled over the existing legislation. If you'd like to know the costs, I can give them to you. Hold on one second. The costs are, the initial application is $250, and then renewals are $200 annual. We just continued what the law had already said.
Those are existing numbers already.
Yes.
So there's no change in that.
No.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Mark.
What about New York City and everything else you mentioned? Because obviously someone could steal something here, go there. How are they communicating with each other? What's their status?
That's a good question, and that's exactly what we're looking at now with our software package, because that's what we want to have. We want to be integrated so that we can work with the bigger entities. The county, we're pretty much working with all the local PDs with them. We can collaborate with them easy. This is what we're looking at, so that we can collaborate with the surrounding counties and New York City and New York State Police, and that's what we're looking at now. So that's going to be part of the decision of what software package we choose to use, because that's what we want to do. We don't want to have disparate databases, and that's a challenge for us now. So that's what we want to do. We don't want to create any more disparate silos of data. And our intention is to be able to collaborate with New York City, electronically.
Okay. Any other questions that we have? Very good. With that thought in mind, thank you all very much for your participation and for identifying a good piece of legislation. And if you'd like to interview anybody one-on-one, feel free. Thanks.